talking about, kind of being like, girl, wait, I'm having that same thing going on at work. And you're like, wait, there's people all around the country saying the same thing. Yeah. So it is a aha moment, kind of, wow, whew, I'm glad I'm not the only one. But then you're like, damn, I'm not the only one. Like, this is the issue. How do we, kind of do this? And so I think what you're doing is definitely right. You're right on track.
I think we have to like use each other's voices to make change, right? Because when we feel like we're the only ones and we stay silent, that's when nothing will ever change. Even if, you submit a question in your company's all hands meetings or you ask your manager, it's still on like a very individualistic basis. So once we start talking and we start sharing experiences, we start learning about the systemic issues, that's when we can raise these questions and these concerns and these requests to the company as a group instead of coming at it like one person at a time.
Hello, and welcome to the Bold Black Girls podcast. I'm Aries.
And I am Kim.
And
today we have a very special guest.
Yes, we are excited. We do this every single month. We have our Bold Black Girl of the Month. And for this month, it is Andrea Long.
Hey, everyone.
So I've been following her for a while. We're connected on LinkedIn, and I kind of had her on my radar and was just like, I'm going to be hitting her up. And so she agreed to hang out with us today. And this is all about her. We want to share. She's doing some great things in the tech world and just in diversity, equity, and inclusion, in event planning, in
personally
and entrepreneurship, exactly. Like all these things. So we'll just deep dive. So tell our audience who you are. Just give us your, a quick intro, and then we'll deep dive into some other things that you got going on.
Awesome. Well, thanks, first of all, so much for having me here today. Really excited to chat with y'all. Hey, everyone. My name's Andrea Long. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Bay Area native. So I live in Oakland, California. I grew up seeing sort of the tech industry start to grow around me. So really excited and blessed to be in it now. I'm now at my third tech company. Where I work at the intersection of diversity and inclusion and recruiting. So a lot of the work that I do focuses on how can we develop programs, processes, and partnerships in order to build opportunities for underrepresented people to interview and eventually get hired at the company. So that is the work that I'm passionate about. Also a 2-time entrepreneur, which I know we'll talk about a little bit. So I have 2 businesses, one that I've been running since 2012, and one that is my COVID baby, came out of, quarantine. And outside of, working too much on both the tech side and my businesses, I like to hang out. I bought a home recently, so I spent a lot of time decorating and really nesting.
Congratulations.
I love that. And she bought a home in the Bay Area. Yes, and you already know that is a feat in and of itself. So that's beautiful that you were able to invest in yourself and your legacy and all those good things. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, that is how we build wealth. That's why we're looking for our 40 acres and a mule, but we got to get it for ourselves at this point.
Right?
Exactly.
Yes, we got to build it for ourselves.
So we want to learn all about you. And I was very intrigued about the COVID baby. So I definitely, we can start wherever you want to start, but I think really let's kind of go back because like you said, you're from the Bay. We already bonded over that. And when you were in UC Davis, what did you study?
So I double majored in 4 years, which looking back, I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But I got my BS in exercise biology, which is very similar to like kinesiology, and a BA in communication. So I went into school thinking that I had two loves. I really am a scientist at heart. I love numbers. I love just like we did human gross anatomy, which was the hardest class I've ever taken, but it was amazing because you're essentially like dissecting cadavers, but you're getting to see where all the vessels and the bones and the muscles and like everything. It was so cool, and I totally nerd out on that stuff. And I wanted to be an athletic trainer, so I went that route. But I also have been doing events since high school. I planned our winter formal and all of our assemblies, and I was on student government and student body president. So I was always planning things, and so I did communication as a backup in case the athletic training didn't work out. And I actually, in college at Davis, I did an internship, a physical therapy internship. And this is why internships are so important, because I was there for about a week. And in that 1 week, I was like, this isn't for me. You have to like touch all these strangers. And as much as it looks glorious to do athletic training for professional athletes or for college sports teams, you generally start at the high school level, or even just like the elderly population or the injured population, where you're not always touching those, like, those abs, if you know what I'm saying. So very quickly I was like, I don't know if this is the industry for me. Like, thank goodness I have that comms to fall back on.
Yeah, that's smart.
Excellent. That was very smart. Because I share with you, I have a daughter, so she has an internship as well. And one of the things is, I believe having her go to those summer programs helped her truly identify what her major would be, right? Because initially she was like, oh, I'm gonna go into business. And she soon realized, I really like tech. And that's how she was able to pivot. So you talk about early on, right? I always ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you know what you wanted to be? Because it seemed like you had a niche for planning, which you have evolved into a business. So how did you know how to plan and that you were going to turn this into a business at such a young age?
I will say I can admit that I'm someone who likes to be good at things, and I try not to do the things I'm not good at. And so early on and like throughout high school, I figured out that I was good at planning. Like, I figured out how to negotiate contracts. Like, I remember, negotiating the balloons at the winter formal, and like there was this moon in the sky, and it was like the highlight of my high school career. It was amazing. And I still think about that night and like how much fun all of my friends had, and like I made that happen. And so I took that into college, and at Davis, I had a number of jobs, but one of them was at the admissions department, where I was still helping to plan prospective student events and new student events. And I did orientation, so I was helping to plan the orientation for freshmen and transfers. And so I really dove into this planning aspect that I felt like I was good at. And not everybody was able to handle the stress of event planning in the same way that I was. So I was like, okay, I've identified this skill that really stresses other people out, but if I can do it well, then like maybe this is a career path for me. And I also in high school planned my mom's wedding to my stepdad, and I gave them like an itemized bill. I invoiced them for my time. Like, I did the whole thing. In high school, I was a junior in high school. And so like that was really honestly the start of Firewood Events, which is like now my wedding planning event agency, where I do both weddings, but also corporate events and conferences and nonprofit events and parties and things like that.
Wow, I am so impressed. So you just brought all your creativity, and now you're maximizing and monetizing off of it. I love it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the thing. I mean, when you can really hone in, that's what people are like searching for, this purpose or this thing. And it's like, really, it's what, if you pay attention to the things, the patterns of your life, like if you weren't really paying attention, like,
I was gonna say,
you got to pay attention to those little
very
things.
Mature for age.
She really is. That's why I was like, this girl, she's
like, you already know,
doing way more than a lot of people. But just to be able to identify that, I think that's super big. People are in their 50s and still trying to figure out what they need to be doing. And you don't have to be doing one thing. It could be multiple things. So like you're doing recruiting and stuff over here, and then you're doing the planning, communications, like all that. So I think that's awesome. And you flipped it into a business. Like that's, and invoice the parents. That's the part that I'm like,
to go back.
I just recently started really learning about invoicing people for, even if you're not going to charge them, like invoicing them and saying like, I'm doing this for free right now, but next time that's how much it's going to cost.
That's smart. Like, I haven't actually done that. I might steal that from you.
Do that.
I learned that. I'm in this like mastermind group, and I was like, oh, I like that. Like that's one that I'm going to put in my back pocket. But yeah, so okay, so you started doing that. You started the business at that time? Was it like, I'm going to start a business now? Or did you kind of wait?
I waited. So that was like the first time, that wedding was the first time I had gotten paid to do event planning. And then I did it sort of, I tried to help people out through college. And then once I graduated, I was like, I need to start charging people. Like, this is what people make a living doing this work, and I can't just be giving it away for free. So I started doing that in 2012 after I had graduated, where I met someone, just like a friend of a friend. And so that also was a little out of my comfort zone, because it wasn't just like a first degree connection this time, it was a second degree. So I felt like I had to step up my game. I got a logo, I made a website, I made a contract for the first time and an invoice and all of these things. So really had to step up.
I love it. You are a girl. Oh my gosh. See, this is why she's the Bold Black Girl of the Month. Okay, so walk us through it. Walk us through kind of the journey. So that was your first kind of entrepreneurial venture? Yeah. And at the same time, you are working in corporate, right? How has your corporate experience been? Because I feel like you're definitely coming in a generation where they're not planning to stay at no company for 35 years, you know? So talk to us about kind of your view of corporate and specifically as a young Black woman in the tech space.
Yeah, so I didn't start my career in tech. I started actually in education, where my first job, I literally was taking their class recordings from cassette tape into digital. It was wild. I didn't even know people still use cassette tapes at the time. But it was right after the end of the 2008 recession. So it was hard to get a job. I took whatever I could get, but that eventually got me into event planning for the school. So I was planning graduation and orientation and dean's scholar lunches and all these fun things. And so there is really, again, where I was like, okay, the validation that I am good at events, I'm doing it for my full time and on the side, like this is where I should be. But eventually I got bored. I'm also, like you said, I'm a millennial. I lose interest very quickly, if you will. That was a great experience, but I wanted to do something different. And so I went into a marketing agency and did affiliate marketing. And that was really the first time in corporate that I felt other and I felt different. And being at the International Business School, there were students from over 90 countries. We had campuses in 5 different countries. So I wasn't the only person who looked like me, even if I was maybe one of the few Black women on staff. There was still so much diversity in the room. And then going to a marketing agency that was owned by a Japanese company, I was the only one in most of the spaces. And also working for a company from Japanese culture, it was very different than working for an American company. So that was really the first time in my career that I sort of felt othered and sort of put in a corner, if you will. And after feeling that a little bit, I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to subject myself to this, which is when I did make the transition into tech. So every company I've been at has been around 2.5 years. So I definitely would categorize myself sort of as a hopper, but for good reason. There's so much opportunity out there, and Black women we're a hot ticket right now, right? Everyone wants to improve their numbers. So if you want to improve your numbers and tokenize me in that way, I'm going to use you and I'm going to get the salary increase and I'm going to get these benefits and I'm going to get this opportunity. So we got to use what we can right now.
Girl.
And I've said that to some people, they need us just as much as we need them, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna be that need.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. All while maintaining hopefully a healthy working relationship. So tell me, you pivoted into tech, but you've talked about you're the intersection of diversity and tech. What was the catalyst and how did you kind of pivot into specifically recruiting?
Yeah, so that was an interesting journey. So my first role in tech actually was in event marketing. So I took my first job, which was events, my second job, which was the marketing agency, and I said, okay, I'm bored with both of these, but maybe if we combine them, it'll be great. And so I went into event marketing, which took sort of the best of both worlds, and I actually really enjoyed that work. And while I was doing that, so I sat on the marketing team at the time, I was also leading the Black Employee Resource Group. And so there was really where I found my community. I didn't feel like the only one. That's where I learned that other people were experiencing this corporate environment in the same way that I was, which frankly, I thought I was the only one, right? Like oftentimes we do. And so through that work with the employee resource group, I had partnered with recruiting to negotiate a conference sponsorship, right? Because a lot of these companies, they say, okay, hey, Black people, what conferences are you going to? We should go there too. And so I was able to help them negotiate down that contract. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, that could be a job. Like that is the event planning skill that I have. Like that is marketing, but instead of marketing to consumers, I'm marketing to candidates. These are all the skills that I'm doing just to a different audience. And so I actually did pitch the job. I wrote a job description. I talked to the person who was leading the team who I wanted to be on or work with. And I said, hey, this is why you need me. Here's the work I have already done for you without even being on the team. Here's the skills that I bring. Let's make it happen. And let me be clear, like people helped me through that journey. Okay. I had folks within the company internally that, were my allies and my advocates saying, Andrea, I can speak to her work. This is what she's produced. Like she has done it. But there's also a few people during that journey who pretended to be my advocates and really sort of undercut me and took the first job opportunity on the recruiting team that I was trying to get. So both had people on my side, and then there's always the snakes in the grass as well. So it's always sort of a mixed experience, but that is how I transitioned into the recruiting work that I do now.
I love it. You're so ahead of the game.
I know.
Because I think that silence of us not really talking about our experiences is what keeps it alive, right?
Yes.
And you mentioning that you thought you were the only one, that is a lot of people's story. And then once we kind of started having our Underground Railroad talking about, kind of being like, girl, wait, I'm having that same thing going on at work. And you're like, wait, there's people all around the country saying the same thing. Yeah. So it is an aha moment, kind of, wow, I'm glad I'm not the only one. But then you're like, damn, I'm not the only one. Like, this is the issue. How do we, kind of do this? And so I think what you're doing is definitely right. You're right on track.
I think we have to like use each other's voices to make change, right? Because when we feel like we're the only ones and we stay silent, that's when nothing will ever change. Even if, you submit a question in your company's all hands meetings or you ask your manager, it's still on like a very individualistic basis. So once we start talking and we start sharing experiences, we start learning about the systemic issues, that's when we can raise these questions and these concerns and these requests to the company as a group instead of coming at it like one person at a time.
Yeah, because then they'll just think that you're just complaining and, it's just Andrea being, I'm gonna mess her up all this whole time. I keep saying I'm gonna mess your name up because of the multiple Andreas and Andreas I have, but Andrea, she's just complaining. You know how she is.
And I've been labeled that, right? Like I've been labeled that my whole career. Like, oh, good, Andrea's coming with another complaint. Like I have had that at every company. And frankly, I have started to embrace it. Like, yes, I am. And what are you going to do about it? Like, let's do better.
Being an Esther.
Being a bold Black woman.
Right.
But no, that's what we need. We need that because who else are you going to hear it from if we're not telling you that these experience, what change needs to take place? Yeah. You're not going to know, and we do have an inside track. You had an inside track with this particular conference, with these people, the community relationships. They should be leveraging people within the organization in order to reach these spaces. So that's good that you were like, and let me let you know what's going on. So now, you're in this space and I want to know about this COVID baby that you got. So tell us a little bit about that and why that was important.
Yeah. So I was at a former company and, I was interviewing. So I was only half in, half out, if you will, as you know how that goes.
Yep.
And so I had a lot of time and I was up until 4 a.m. one night, just thinking through these ideas that were just floating in my head. And it was so weird because it was kind of like a movie moment, like where you see somebody just like scribbling notes and just like writing like furiously. And I was calling people like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Like, would you buy this? And it was such sort of an out of body experience. But I called my cousin, Kelly Nayo Jahi, who she is a little bit older than me. So I like look up to her. She has her MBA. She has started multiple businesses. And I called her and was like, hey, I need some advice. I have this idea. What do you think? And after a few conversations, we were like, let's do this together. Let's make it a family business. And so that's how Swag by ASAYO came about. And so this is a business that we provide swag boxes and gift boxes for either events or for teams or for individuals that feature products from all small businesses that are owned by Black and Latinx people. So it's something where we are able to introduce new consumers to these Black and Latinx owned businesses. And we are also able to provide a sustainable business for ourselves as Black women and a family owned business, right? So really wanting to be able to uplift and increase the business that these small business owners are gaining access to by going through corporate events and team building activities.
So do you have to keep like a warehouse of stuff? Like how do you
that work?
How do you get it all put together?
Definitely. Yeah, no. So we have a little warehouse, AKA my house. So we do have a warehouse. We have boxes and we have what's called crinkle paper, like the stuff to pack the boxes. We have tape and sticker, all these things. I have learned so much about having a business with a physical product. Right. Because my other business, Firewood Events, is event planning. It's a service, right? So all I ever had to have in stock was like a Google Doc of a contract and like maybe like tape to bring to the wedding in case something fell off. But like I didn't ever have to have a warehouse, right? So now these are the things I'm thinking about of keeping inventory and having accounts with the post office and making sure that we can send things by air. Or for example, we sent diffusers, like the little home scented diffusers that it smells amazing. There's this Black-owned business based out of San Jose that we supported, but it has alcohol in it. So we learned that you can't ship alcohol by air. So we had to ship it by ground. So it's been a huge learning experience. But the thing that I love is that the companies that I have worked at have been very supportive of me being an entrepreneur on the side. I've been very upfront. Every time before I have signed an offer at a company, I disclose I have these two businesses. They're not competitors, but I need it to be in writing in case anything comes up in the future. I have a separate laptop that I do all my business on because if you read the fine print, everything you do on that work computer, they own. So those are like the small things that I've picked up from other, mentors in this space and from my older, wiser cousin as we've grown. But yeah, it's been really interesting. And we definitely got to get the Bold Black Girls mugs in
our box. Gotta get them, girl. I was like, this is so cool because it's all the things you just said, like in one, it's multiple businesses being supported and keeping that dollar flowing in the community, which we found that, especially in the Black community, the dollar does not last long at all. So I love
definitely varied some of the top consumers.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I don't want to go back. You talked about negotiation. I probably heard you say negotiation about 5 or 6 times. And so one of the things that we've talked about on here is back in the day, we weren't taught how to negotiate. So I'm interested to know, like you talked about it in high school, you negotiated that, but how do you feel like you got that skill of negotiating?
So I love negotiating. I'll start there. And not everybody does. Most people don't. It makes a lot of people nervous, and it does make me nervous more when it's my money versus like when it's like for a business, when I'm planning an event and it's like the company's money. So I will admit that. But I think I got the skill, honestly, just from practice, from those high school contracts with caterers and with venues, and having an advisor there to sort of walk me through it. What I learned is absolutely never disclose your number. Never. I know that some people advise you when you're like negotiating your salary to, say what you want first, because then they can't take it back. And I get it in theory. But I am of the mind that never say your number. If you're negotiating your salary, say what your number is plus 20, 30K. If you're negotiating a contract for an event, you want to negotiate down. So say 50% less than you're willing to pay. Like, never reveal it. And I honestly, I think it sort of feels like a game. It's like, okay, who has the power and who goes next? And I prefer negotiating over the phone than on paper. And I know a lot of people like to do it over email because it's frankly a little bit easier. But I think I have more leverage when we've built this relationship, we have this rapport. So yeah, I kind of think of it like a game.
I love it.
Yeah, I think once I started learning, I was like, this is actually, it does you feel powerful when you are able to like get that. And I read a while ago when I was really studying negotiation, that even if you get a little bit more, just, I don't care if it's $5,000 more or whatever, there is a level of respect that comes around with that within the organization. Like when you come in, that you didn't just accept what they gave you, like you spoke up, added value, and all these different things. So I love that. It is a game for me too. I'm like, something.
Yeah.
Something.
And frankly, as I got further in my career and started to negotiate my salary, so I was always really comfortable with negotiating contracts for events, but my salary was like, that took me a little bit longer to be comfortable doing that, especially once I got to numbers where frankly, I didn't even know people made this much money. Like I was like, great, you're gonna give me what? Like, and so
and then you're like, why would I negotiate more? I'm good.
Exactly.
Like, this is amazing. Yes. But it's like, no, you still need to negotiate.
Exactly. And honestly, that's when I went to my white dude friends and I was like, so what do you say? Like, you give me your script. I'll take notes. I went to like 3 or 4 white men. I went to a couple of white dudes or black dudes and a couple of black women. And I was like, I just want to hear your spiel. What do you say when you're negotiating? I took all of their little sentences and I took the words that made me feel comfortable and I built my own script. And so like now that's sort of what I use when I'm negotiating my salary. So I did a lot of sort of market research, if you will.
I love it. That's a very near and dear topic to us as far as negotiation, especially we talk about the Black community and building wealth. And one of the reasons we don't have wealth is because we don't negotiate our pay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty, right? But now I know better, so I do better.
Yeah. And I also think like the equity piece is so important because we as Black people traditionally, like we're just focused on cash. What can I get right now in my account?
Because I think some people don't realize or understand when you say equity, what are you referring to?
Yeah. So when I say equity, I'm talking about either stock in a company or what's called RSUs, which is restricted stock units. So basically what I think of like all of that monopoly money that's in the stock market that I don't really understand, frankly, right. Versus the cash salary that you're getting on a monthly basis. And so we often are focused on that cash salary because we want instant gratification. We want it right now. I want to buy this tomorrow. But where you actually build wealth, now I'm learning, is through the stock, through the equity in your company, especially if you can get in pre-IPO before a company goes public. And then once it goes public, it just increases so much in value. So I've been fortunate enough to be at 2 companies pre-IPO and at 1 public company where I did have stock. So those things, now that I have been there and I have seen how life-changing it is for people, now I try to help educate others when they're negotiating to not just focus on that cash.
Yeah, we got that, put your money under the mattress, mentality on a lot of things. And a lot of it's just a lack of knowledge in the stock market and that stuff as well. So I definitely lean on people that I know that have done it and that know. Like, I'm like, so what do I need to be asking for? What's the thing? But I want to know, do you have like mentors or people? Do you have like an advisory board, people that you learn from?
Yes, wholeheartedly. Absolutely. Yes. I I am like so quick to admit that I don't know everything as much as I'd like to, but I don't, right? And I haven't gone through all of life yet. And I have so many people in my network that are wiser and have experienced these things and can sometimes put words into what the experiences that I'm going through are. And so I have folks that mentor me on the entrepreneurship side, folks that have their own businesses who transitioned out of the corporate workspace into entrepreneurship. So they help me with my businesses. I have folks that work in the corporate world at the C-suite level who can help me sort of work on my corporate communications and my executive presence and things like that. And then I also have people who are just like general life mentors, right? But I think having people in your corner, no matter who it is, just to like talk through things and get advice, even if you don't formally call them your mentor, is so important.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, it's a necessary thing. I love it. And I'm getting more into like the coaching and the mastermind, just groups where you're learning from each other and learning from these experiences, because you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And exposure, it really like, once I had Kim cracking up, I'm like, I see somebody who I know and I'm like, wait, how much money are you making? What?
I can do that.
Now in my mind, I'm broken. Now that old mentality is gone. I'm like, oh, if they can make this much, like
sky's the limit.
I'm about to yes. And so I've been in that situation too, right? I will say some of the more impactful groups that I've been in have been I've been in a women of color or a Black women group that talk about finances. And so in those groups, we are sort of taking a different topic each month and researching on our own or bringing in guest speakers and then coming together to say, here's what I learned, here's what we should be thinking about. And that is when I started to understand and have conversations with my peers about how much money they are making and what is out there and like what things you can negotiate that I hadn't even considered as negotiation points. And I think it's so important for us to talk about money. And those are things that we're often afraid to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like so open. I'll be like, girl, let me show you this. This is how much it was. Right. And this is what the check was, and all these different things, because I definitely think that, again, the silence keeps people underpaid.
Mm-hmm. I realized that, literally I was on a walk with some old colleagues and I shared like what my former bonus was. And they were like, what? I'm like, and yours wasn't? And it was like, because like, wow, I haven't shared that. I would have been asking for more. Like, why isn't that like challenging that or saying, you know what? I need to move on.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for me.
Mm-hmm. And that's the equity piece, within these companies of are we on an equal playing field here? Like, that happened to me at a really big company that I work for. And I looked and found out that when I started, I was making $20,000 more than what I was making at the previous company. So I was like, got some money, but I should have been making $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
The range that they were supposed to put me in on, they were paying me less than the range.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't find that out 5 years later.
So imagine how much money she's
left on the table, right? And I was like, that burned me to the core. I was like, now what's the negotiation rule? What do I need to do? Like, I don't play now. I'm like, nope, because I'm still thinking about those dollars that I left, on the table.
And now in California, they passed a law where you can legally ask for where the range, and recruiters have to tell you what the salary range is. Ooh. And we can assume that they're maybe not being as honest as they can about the top of the range, but whatever the top they give you, you could probably go a little bit above it, right? So I think since they passed that law, frankly, it's made me feel more comfortable asking for a range and feeling more confident to ask for the top of it when I believe I have met those qualifications.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, that's good, because I definitely feel like in the last few years, the conversations that I've had, I asked from the beginning, how much is this job paying? Because I'm not going to go through 4 interviews and then y'all tell me 50,000 and I'm gonna be like, I just wasted my time. So just let me know now what it is, and then I can, decide whether I'm gonna keep going or not.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So you are doing
a lot,
personally and professionally. Black women, we do a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you incorporating self-care?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, number one, I go to therapy, recommend it to everyone. Another thing that we don't talk about, but people are starting to, and honestly, it has been a game changer for me. And it's been really, really helpful. And so I would say that's really where it starts for me. Everything else, I'll be honest with you, I like ebb and flow in different areas. Like I'll go a quarter and I'll work out every other day for a whole quarter. And then the next quarter, I'm like, this couch is looking real good. And I sit down. But like, those are both options for self-care, right? Right now, I actually got into watercolor painting. So I have a friend who's an artist who I follow, and she has these like beautiful videos of like how the ink goes in the water and spreading it across the page. And I just like got so inspired. And so I reached out to her and said, hey, I just want to play around. I want to start doing this. Like, can you recommend, like, where do I start basically? Right. And she sent me, paints to get and some paint brushes and some paper, because apparently you need different paper for watercolors. Who knew? And so I've been doing that for almost like 2 weeks. I've been painting like one little painting a day. And that has been like very therapeutic, just to honestly like watch the colors mix and to build these new shapes, or to have a finished product that like looks cool. It's like I feel very accomplished, but it's also really, really relaxing.
Yeah, that's good, because you got to have something. And we've talked about here, like listening to your body and really going with that flow. So there's going to be seasons, right? Mm-hmm. You just said that, working out a bunch and then maybe relaxing a bunch, and water paint, all these things. It's really good, because when you're running around with multiple businesses and a corporate job and trying to have a personal life, those things can definitely get you all over. Because right now I feel like I'm like, okay, I need to, next year, I'm going to release some things off of my schedule, because it does kind of, sometimes we could be running away by filling our calendar up with all these things, feeling like we can't just have a day off. And I'm over that. Like, so I'm glad that you're, doing those things and really taking those seasons to do what your body needs it to do.
And I wish we would like allow ourselves a lot of what I've talked about with my therapist, and like what I talk about in my spare time sort of with myself, is like giving myself the grace to be okay with whatever season it is, right? Because naturally I am like a former athlete. I did water polo in college. I did swimming and water polo in high school. And like, I am very used to having like a very strict workout regimen, right? That is what my former body is used to, right? And now it's like, it's okay if I am on this strict workout schedule and I find that very relaxing, whether it's yoga and it is a little bit of meditation in between, or it's like, weightlifting or whatever. But it's also okay if I want to sit down, because I do a lot, and I'm coming into this part of my life where I am accepting and like giving myself grace to say that is okay as well.
Oh my God, you are speaking our language.
You really are. Like, I can hear previous podcasts, because we talked about grace a lot and giving yourself grace. So I love it.
So where can people follow your journey and story? I'm stalking her on LinkedIn, so y'all can find her on LinkedIn. But where are do you have Instagram or some other places that people follow you on?
Yeah, so I definitely post the most on LinkedIn. So I'm just /Andrea Long. I started Twitter. So for all of those tweeters, I don't know what you are. I don't even know. I'm not cool enough. But if you're good at Twitter and you want to teach me how, I'm at the Andrea Long. And then to follow my businesses, it's at Firewood Events and firewoodevents.com, and Swag by ASAYO, which is ASAYO. And so that's on all social and website and everything.
Yes.
Can you tell the people what the ASAYO?
ASAYO.
ASAYO stands for?
Yeah. So ASAYO is 2 words that means, Asa and Ayo. Asa is culture and Ayo is joy. And so we wanted to bring a little bit of culture and joy through our gift boxes. So we put that together, had my amazing designer friend build us this beautiful logo, which has a lot of African symbolism built into it. And so, trying to keep it, part of the culture.
I love it. That's why I wanted you to talk about it. The culture and Black joy. So
yes,
I'm a fan.
Yes. Well, we are so happy to have you. Like we've said, this segment of our podcast every month, we just take to really shine a light on a Black woman killing it. And you definitely are out here doing it. All the fire emojis popping up all over the place.
Yes.
I just love to see it. And that is really why we started this podcast, is really to say, hey, you're not the only one, whatever you're going through right now. There are other people out here, but also to really showcase Black women in our community, killing it, and just doing big things. And whatever the media representation that has been out there and the narratives that are being painted, like,
We're
no,
changing it.
now you can say, I've met someone via the social media or whatever that is doing this and that, and you can glean something from their story. So we're glad to shine the light on you today, and can't wait to keep following and see what else you get out there. Because I'm like, she at the beginning, child. She ain't even got into the nitty gritty. So
I've been negotiating in high school, okay?
Right? So yes, we love it.
And invoicing.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Andrea.
See you later.
Bye.